Good enough?
I appreciate that's good enough. Well, obviously, we're excited about being here and can't thank the Sun Bowl committee. All the venues that have hosted both teams have done a marvelous job. When you come to a bowl game, you anticipate events for players and families, and you guys have gone overboard to do that, to make us all feel at home. I know visiting with the coach and his wife, same thing. We've sat together a couple dinners now and talked about the experience that the players receive at a bowl game. And you can't take a bowl game lightly in the sense that it is a reward for what you've done during the season. And you want players to enjoy it, but you also want them to concentrate on the task at hand. And it is about playing football. This is why we're here. The hardest thing probably in a bowl game, especially this situation that both of us are in, 30 days have gone by before we actually played a football game. That's a long time without playing a real game. And so I think tomorrow you'll see two teams that are very excited about playing. He mentioned the weather conditions, it won't matter. Weather won't be a factor. Both teams are very well coached. We watch these guys on tape, very talented. And I can say that I was with the Buccaneers, and we had a lot of Buccaneer players that played for Florida State. Been to a lot of Coach Bowden's practices when Coach was coaching there, actually, with the Buccaneers. And so they've got a rich history of football. And as Coach said, they're going through a transition period similar to what ASU is going through right now. All arrows for them will be pointing up. I think our arrows are starting to slightly go in the direction we'd like them to go. We have a young football team, 32 freshmen. The true freshmen or redshirt freshmen played for us this year and did a pretty good job. And when you look at our team next year, we'll only have 9 seniors on our team, very young. And so we need these type of experiences, playing against a team that's very talented athletically, coached very well. This is another process of developing our program of young players, playing against good teams. So we anticipate a good football game tomorrow. Any questions?
Same question. As I asked Coach Haggins, what are your thoughts about players electing to sit out bowl games for because of the NFL draft?
Well, Coach couldn't have said it better. It's the player's choice, and I think we lose sight of this. Don't forget that these players that are sitting out actually help these teams get to these bowl games. Okay, without them, we're not here. With our 2 players, we're not here. Well, you know, Benjamin and obviously Ayuk. Last year, Nikhil sat out. He was a first-round pick for the New England Patriots. I've been on both sides of it. I've been a former player. I played in the league, coached in the league for 30 years, so I get it. Some people get all sideways. Why doesn't he play? It's the way of the world. It's what players do. And you don't disrespect them. You don't get mad at them. I'm hoping they'll show up for the game, stand on the sideline. I knew last year our guy didn't play. Nikhil didn't play. He was on the sideline. So we're fine. And I know Coach probably feels the same way about his guys. And that's the way it is. And I think sometimes we put all this pressure on these kids, and it's their life. You give them the information. It's a part of growing up. They get to make a decision. Is it a big decision? It's a big decision. But this is their life. Whatever they've done for you as a football player, don't lose sight of that. Don't lose sight of all the good things they've done to help you win. And we lose sight of that when they decide to say, well, might not play in this game. You don't want to play, you don't want to play. We're good. Somebody else will play. As long as you play with 11, you're okay.
Coach, how have you brought the NFL model to your program? How have the NFL guys on your staff kind of helped build that model?
Well, it's a process like anything. It's kind of new for some college coaches because of our approach of how we do things, as far as practice-wise, how we look at recruiting players, the DNA, similar to what you do in the National Football League. Now, the only difference I would say in college compared to pro football is, and I've said it numerous times, in pro football you actually draft them. College football, they pick you. So there's relationships that start at a very young age. You're talking sophomores. You start courting these guys. And there's a lot of conversations, right? I mean, that's what this thing really becomes, of relationships with you and the coach, the guy that's recruiting him. 80% of your life of college football is recruiting. You're a good coach when you got good players. You really are. And your lifeblood is players, and you got to go recruit them. And you got to have a mechanism of how you want to go about doing it. And then when they get to your campus, Most of these guys, I would say 80% of them, if you'd ask them, do they want to play on Sunday, they would raise their hand. Well, if you have a mechanism to show them what it takes to play on Sundays, you have a better chance. That's why Florida State is always going to have some gifted players. They have a history of players playing in the National Football League. A couple of them played for the Bucks, Derrick Brooks, Dexter Jackson, Warwick Dunn, just to name a few that played for the Bucks team. They have a history of that. Arizona State has had a history of players that played in the National Football League as well. So I just think when you have universities that give players a chance to go to the next level, they look at you a little bit different, to be quite honest.
How has guys like Antonio and Martin kind of helped?
And Kevin Mawai walks around with a yellow jacket. All that helps, especially when it's recruiting-wise. And if you're going to walk in your room and you go, well, guess what? Antonio Pierce is my linebacker coach. Pretty good coach, you know. And Kevin Mawai is eventually going to be the offensive line coach. Yeah, pretty good coach. Darren Hagan played in the National Football League, a wide receiver. Pretty good coach. So I think when players see that and they can tell them what it takes to get to that level, they don't talk about it. They've been about it. They've seen it. Marvin Lewis and myself have been in the National Football League together, coaching and playing 56 years. We have a lot of experience. No coach has ever given a player talent. No coach in the history of coaching, any sport. God gives them the talent. You give them information. You give them knowledge. That's what we do. We're knowledge providers. That is our task. Give them knowledge. Their task is, can they retain the knowledge, the retention of it? Can they take the knowledge you give them in the classroom, on the football field, and practice and take it and apply it in the game? That's what we do. That's what all coaches do. Coaches are teachers. We're no different than anyone else. We're teachers. And you have great relationships in football. That's why Coach has been there for 26 years. He loves that university. It's part of his DNA. It's part of his family. You know, we're all coaches all over the country are all tied together. We get to coach this great game of football. It's helped us all. And all we're doing is giving back to the game that we love.
Coach Haggins is a teacher. He's been there, somebody you talk about, been there a very, very long time. Just talk about the level of respect you have for him as somebody who's seen a lot of different head coaches coming through. Very, very unique.
Well, it is in the sense that in this game of football, there's transition. It happens. Look, it happens with players in today's world. There's this thing called the portal. Players are used to change. We recruit players now in high school that actually gone to 3 high schools. So that's just a matter of fact. And so as much as you may think this change affects them, it's kind of normal now for coaches and players. People move around. It's just part of the deal. All the player wants to know is this. The coach that stands before me, can he help me become a better player? Coach that sits to the right of me and myself, we don't only want to make them better players, we want to make them better men. Because if we haven't done that, we failed them, to be quite honest. I mean, and that's the Florida State program. I know that from my days in Tampa when Coach Bowden was the coach. I mean, that's their DNA. I mean, that's kind of our DNA. Look, we want to help them be better men. They're all not going to play in the National Football League. 2%. That's it. Life expectancy is 3.2 years. Then you got to go out and get a real job. Well, how is being a football player at Florida State or Arizona State going to help you when you go into the real world? And both staffs, I know his staff, my staff, we believe in that. That's kind of what we do, besides just coaching football.
Coach, you added another coach yesterday, 24-year-old coach. With Prentice-Gill, Hagan, you've really added a young dynamic to your coaching staff. It's
important. I think as a coach, not only do you coach players, but you develop coaches because you want coaches to move on and become a part of your legacy as coaches. You know, I was under Tony Dungy in Tampa. He taught me how to become a head coach. That's part of the coaching process. You want coaches to have opportunities to move on. They become young coaches. They come in. Eventually they become coordinators, hopefully become head coaches. So that's part of our deal as well. So when you hire a young guy, a couple things have to come in mind. Can he handle the room of the players that he's about to coach? Can they communicate? Well, they can because they're in the same era. I'm not in the era of the players that are playing now, okay? I'm on tape, but it's not high definition, right? It's not. This is not. Okay, I'm in a different era. And the coaches, the young coaches today, they understand that. Can I communicate? I can communicate with them. Coach can communicate with them. But they're in a different world, and you got to have guys that can, speak to what they want to hear. And when you hire young guys, you understand that. Along with this, they got to be really good recruiters. They got to be able to recruit. It's not just coaching; it's recruiting. You got to be able to recruit. And how do you make those headways into certain areas where your lifeblood is in certain communities? Well, young players are all connected to that, and young coaches are connected to that. That helps you.
Coach, Irish Warchant.com. Does Florida State, obviously not at the last few seasons like they traditionally had, do they still draw the excitement out of your players when they hear they're playing for Florida State?
Absolutely, because of the brand. They have a tremendous brand, and Coach mentioned it. And there's transitions. It's like anything. There's transitions sometimes, and they've kind of gone through that a little bit. But when you turn the film on, say, and just think about, football, more games are lost than won in football. They really are. And we're all, at the end of the year, when you look at the tape, there's about 20 plays in the season. You say, hey, if we make about 6 of these, my record's a lot better. We played in 9 one-score games. I mean, do the math. You're not going to win all 9 of them. But when you play in close games, it's a play or two. It's whatever happens, and you got a better record. And so I think that's how we look at it as coaches, and I think players look at it the same way.
How do you keep your guys focused throughout the holiday season?
It's hard. It's hard. There's no doubt about it. And you've been a month away from football. Christmas, you gave some time off, and the New Year's is about to hit, and these are young people, but they multitask. That's the world they live in. They live in a 15-minute world, because after 15 minutes, they're on to something else. And so they function that way. So I just think you got to be able to coach that way. You can't coach the same way I coached 20 years ago. Athletes are different. They learn different. They multitask. Even in the NFL, you hear coaches in the NFL. The NFL, okay, I've been in that league. I get it. Well, they meet all day. Let me tell you something. About every 20 minutes, a lot of these coaches, give them a phone break. NFL players. So I just think you can't fight it. You got to understand it. How do you teach them? That's what you have to figure out. They all learn different. In today's world, they learn different than they learned 20 years ago. And you can't fight it. You just got to understand. I got to adjust the way I teach now. They still want to learn, but how do you teach them so they can learn?
Last question. From your perspective, how challenging and impressive is it to do what Odell has done, which is take over late in the season and pull everybody together and keep things moving forward?
Very difficult, but the character of the man tells you that his players respect him and they're going to follow him. Look, when you're at a university for 26 years, what else do you need to know? He has an ultimate respect from the community, from the student body, from the players, from the administrators. They know who is leading this team right now. And when you make a change like that, you have to have a man in place that has good character, that has the lifeblood of FSU. He does, all right? So when that happened, look, when I was sitting in Arizona and it happened, I was clapping, right? So that's the right man. That's the right man for the job. And they couldn't have picked a better man. So that's where that's at.
Thank you, Coach.
Okay, thank you.